It's the largest public housing landlord in North America, and now the New York City Housing Authority, or NYCHA, celebrates its 75th anniversary. Now, for some, public housing has a reputation for being unpleasant, even dangerous. But the full story says something much different and far better. Since 1934, the Housing Authority has helped to enrich the lives of its residents, who number more than 400,000. That's more people than the populations of New Orleans, St. Louis, or Minneapolis. I'm James Ford of the WPIX Morning News, and welcome to our special Keeping the Promise, the 75th anniversary of the New York City Housing Authority. And we're standing in NYCHA's first development, First Houses, on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Let's go to its founding and Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia's vision to reshape the city's landscape and help poor and working class families in the process.
Every New Yorker deserves the well-being that comes with living in a safe and desirable home. And over the past 75 years, the New York City Housing Authority has provided those homes to millions in our city. Today, roughly 1 in every 20 New Yorkers lives in a public housing development. Yes, but NYCHA is much more than bricks and mortar, and I want to make sure everybody understands that. It's about community, it's about opportunity. All these people share the same thing. They share a sense of pride that comes from living in the greatest public housing system in the nation.
What it represents is 75 years of housing the working people of New York City. And that means is the people who sustain the city, the people who run the trains, the people who make the city possible and make this big dream a reality for the nation and for the state.
We have the same aspirations, the same dreams, and the same vision as any other New Yorker in the city. And we like the public to know that so that they will look at the public housing community as being a new vehicle for the new economy of New York, and also find out a little bit more about what's been going on here that they don't know about, that is just like any other citizen in the city.
Dr. Nicholas Bloom, author of Public Housing That Worked, tells us how public housing in New York City got its start. Take us back to the very beginning. I mean, really, what are the origins of public housing here in New York, and how did those origins end up influencing what ended up being built and being occupied?
Public housing in New York starts in the 1930s, in the Depression era, but its history goes back further, which is that housing reformers in New York were distressed over the permanence of the tenements. These were, for much of New York's history, crowded, substandard. There might be one bathroom on a floor. Coal was used as a heating source in individual apartments. There were problems with vermin and so forth. I mean, there were fires. And the big problem was that the tenements in New York were owned very often by large investors. There were small owners too, but there were large investors, and they had no incentive to improve them. They were getting some rent out of them, very often good rent, because they were crowded. It was crowded housing, whether in Harlem or elsewhere. So the reformers in the 1930s came along and they said, well, we need some way to speed up this process of redevelopment so that we can get rid of this unsanitary housing. And that's how you also end up with these super blocks, right? Which is the idea that there'll be green space in the city, there'll be this open space, play areas for young children, get them out of the streets, right? You pull them off the streets into these play areas or new parks, and this would create a new model of urban life. Places like Harlem River houses, or Williamsburg houses, which is another 4-story walk-up, they're celebrated today as, this incredible, and they're very nice. But back in the 1930s, when they were starting public housing and they did these projects, there was, the tenants loved them, right? But there was enormous criticism that they were too nice.
The image of public housing has been tattooed and indelibly tattooed on the minds of New Yorkers in a lot of ways, to the point where there was a fear of people that live in public housing and a fear of these communities.
Reginald Bowman is president of the Citywide Council of Presidents, and he's a NYCHA resident. He feels that the image of people who live in public housing is not accurate. The impression that people have about public housing needs to change. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think that the New York City Housing Authority resident image has been kind of hidden from the public. And the real image of the people that live here, we're just normal New York City people who have the same aspirations and goals that anybody else has. We have children in the public schools. We have people who work in 9-to-5 jobs in all aspects of the city and civil service. And we would like to be considered as normal, everyday New Yorkers who contribute just as much to the New York City economy as anybody else. So
And I'd say
we
that's
really
happening
are.
now,
We are normal New Yorkers, and sometimes in the past we've been looked at as a city within a city and sort of isolated or marginalized from the rest of the public. And what we're trying to do now is show people that there's a new face of the public housing resident in the city of New York.
Among the new faces is NYCHA Chairman John Rhea.
Why is it that New York City has been able to maintain this large public housing stock and have a waiting list for it at this stage when so many other cities, it's a much different situation?
Right. Well, I think, first of all, there's a huge commitment to preservation here in New York, and that's a critical component of it. But it really does go back to the beginning. You know, public housing in New York was built from the outset to be very sustainable. It wasn't viewed as a temporary solution to a short-term, overcrowding or housing problem. The idea of supporting and sustaining families has always been a big piece of New York City public housing's philosophy. And so from the very early days, families and working families were given a preference and a priority. That still carries on to today.
The family feeling, the closeness, the interaction with your neighbor, feeling like you are connected to something that's bigger than yourself, feeling the actual pulse of the city flowing through you is one of the best things about living in public housing.
Most big cities had to demolish their public housing complexes because they simply got run down. New York's, however, continue to flourish and even have waiting lists. Despite some problems, NYCHA is still the most successful and largest public housing system in the country. We'll be right back.
It was an exciting time. It was an exciting place. It was a communal place. My family, I was born in the Bronx, and a month after I was born, my family moved to the Amsterdam houses in Manhattan. And that's where we stayed until just a month before I turned 16. And it was a place where I made all of my first friends and other families, parents being supportive and looking out for each other. Obviously, public housing, by its very nature, are people who are within a certain income level. But that's not to say that there aren't people who can accomplish things living there, and there were then and there are now.
Welcome back. While NYCHA provides homes for more than 400,000 people in New York City, it is so much more than that. It has a wide variety of programs for children, teens, seniors, and everyone in between, from sports to painting to singing, even employment services. Let's take a look at some of these hidden gems.
Until the rainbow burns the stars out in the sky.
Citywide programs actually have about 40 programs under our jurisdiction. We have an educational true sports unit, an educational services unit, the creative arts unit. So we'll have sports from lacrosse all the way to football, softball that we offer our residents. Our educational programs have a reading literacy program for children from 0 all the way through 8. Then we have computer training programs. We apply for many grants, and we work with City College to provide job readiness program for NYCHA residents, computer training. We also have the creative arts unit, and we hire consultants that will go to our community and senior centers to provide workshops for our residents. At least we have about 86 visual arts program and about 96 performing arts.
Youth Chorus is made up of young people from all 5 boroughs, mostly NYCHA residents. The age range is from 12 to 21. And we rehearse all styles of music and perform all styles of music.
Everyone's taking control of me. Seems like the world's got a roll.
city is a family, and it's an extended family. And one of the things that we do is we base what we do on love, being respectful of one another, and like I said, just preparing the young people to go out and perform and to have a good time doing that.
It's a great place for them to just really grasp the concept of discipline. A lot of young people think that when they always see the finished product of a video and everything is just readily available, cars, jewels, and all you know, and the like, they don't realize that to become an artist and have a lasting career, you definitely have to have discipline and really understand what it is to train and respect your art.
This is our 32nd annual senior festival. We work with a group of seniors, or sometimes intergenerational group, because we want to include that particular group, to create, write a play, and then they act, dance, and perform in it. We provide a professional venue. We do all the production. It's a professional production with amateur cast.
Never would have made it without you.
A lot of the seniors stay home alone. They don't have family members that talk to them. So this gives them a chance to come out. They get so excited. Oh, we have a performance. We got to get dressed up. We got someplace to go. They will not miss rehearsal. They love being around their peers and being able to talk and laugh and we have fun.
Sometimes, we have ups and downs in our lives, especially the elders. Anything that can lift you up spiritually and make your life feel better, that's what I look forward to every time I come to rehearsal or performance.
It uplifts the ones that really can't even come out to go to a church or here. It's just beautiful. That's all I can say. It's just beautiful.
Changes public housing because the people in public housing see a positive side of public houses. They come and it's like, a lot of people didn't even know there was a senior choir. They look slow when they're going up to perform, but then when they open their mouth and the energy that comes out, people are amazed.
NYCHA also supports the fine arts. The Resident Art Show has been taking place for 20 years and continues to be an outlet for artists of all kinds. Other services include NYCHA's Section 3 and Resident Employment Program, which create opportunities for NYCHA residents to work in the construction trades.
Our job training efforts are not only intended to sustain and strengthen our residents, who at the end of the day are the people who pay rent and sustain NYCHA, but it's also driven to look at the long-term structural challenges we have in making this authority sustainable financially.
A lot of people are not working right now. The recession hit pretty hard, so it's a good thing to try to get the tenants in the area where they're working, get them to work. It's a good thing. It's good money, good pay. You get a chance to get into the union. Everything's pretty cool.
The programs and services NYCHA offers go far beyond housing. They enrich the lives of residents and offer new opportunities. Coming up next, watch NYCHA go green. It seems like the whole country is going green, and NYCHA is doing its part to help the environment as well. With more than 175,000 apartments, the opportunity to really make a difference is huge.
Our second biggest line item after salaries for to run NYCHA is the $700 million we spend a year on energy expense. And so we're looking at opportunities to invest in our buildings, bring down our cost of energy. It's a positive thing for the environment, but at the same time, it makes NYCHA more sustainable economically by making those long-term investments in reducing our energy expenses.
Last year, we spent $530 million on energy alone. If we are able to cut that in half, then NYCHA will be here for 75 more years, no doubt in my mind.
NYCHA's Going Green agenda includes reducing energy costs by implementing a chlorofluorocarbon light bulb program to reduce overall energy use, also efforts to reduce water consumption and green the environment of the local housing developments as much as possible in a variety of measures.
What we're doing is something amazing. People are very impressed about it. And I'm not bragging about it. We are changing systems in our facilities from boilers, hot water heaters, to instantaneous hot water heater. We are expanding our gardening program, and we are planting over 10,000 new trees to make sure that the dirt that we have put in the air, the green gases, are cleaned by these wonderful trees that are the only thing in the planet that can clean the green gases that we produce.
Over $200 million in federal stimulus money is targeted toward energy efficiency and conservation upgrades in New York City public housing. But there are some residents of NYCHA who want to see their communities go green in another way as well.
The gardening program of NYCHA, believe it or not, began in the 1950s before anybody else was thinking about green. Because when NYCHA was created with the understanding that you cannot create housing without the environment being green. The gardening program today have over 4,000 members. And these are volunteers that come from older adults to young people who are involved in gardening in the earth that we have to make it green again, to clean the environment, and to also create a better environment to the aesthetics, to the beauty of NYCHA, and to the contribution of NYCHA to the greening of the entire city.
It allows them to take greater interest and pride in their community, create greater awareness of environmental efforts like planting trees, cultivating the land through gardening, improving air quality with trees, plantings, and the combination thereof.
I started in 1975. Yeah, I didn't know anything about gardening, so I went to a class, Cornell, and I just, I didn't even know how to make a row when I first started. I got some lady from down south, showed me how to make a row, and I just went from there. I asked Howland, could I have a garden? She said, you have to enter the contest. I said, what is that? I said, all I want to do is grow vegetables. But she said I had to enter the contest, and I've been doing it ever since. Oh, I've been winning every year. I got so many trophies, I can't count them.
My garden, my mother started it almost 10 years ago.
10 to 12 years.
Yeah, and then my mother passed away, and we took it along, myself and my two brother-in-laws. What we're doing is we're giving the area a beautiful look, and anything beautiful makes you want to, do things there.
I'm proud of what we're doing because it's something that brings positive thoughts in the neighborhood, brings kids to us. Because we had kids that wasn't doing nothing. They came, they helped. Now we got them working in the city programs. We lost some of them and we kept some of them. But that showed them that they could get nice responsibility, they could be more productive in the community. And they learn something. When they grow up, they might have a house, they might want to have vegetables, make it look nice.
Growing up in a project, for me, I have fond memories. The reason I have fond memories is because it was a place where there were so many kids who would come together. We were all kind of in it together, and those of us who played the different sports, became very close to each other. Almost invariably now, I bump into somebody who says, yeah, I know you're from the Woodside Houses. It's like a reunion. The thing I believe, and it's my life story, is that where you start is simply a beginning. Where you end depends on what you do with your life, how hard you work, how well you do in school, and what opportunities you pursue.
Welcome back to our celebration of 75 years of the New York City Housing Authority. Now, after looking at the past and present, let's take a look to the future to see what's in store for NYCHA. And keeping the promise is the slogan for this 75th year. How much is that a part of your mindset as you begin your workday, and for that matter, end your workday on some very long days?
Yeah, well, it actually is, it represents everything that we do, not just that I do, but what the 12,000 employees at NYCHA are up to every day. We recognize we have an incredible mission and a responsibility to, 650,000 residents to deliver for them. And so my commitment to the city and to those residents is that everything that we're about is ensuring the sustainability of this organization. And I take that very seriously.
And that's keeping the promise, as it were.
That's keeping the promise that NYCHA will be around, that public housing will be a critical component of New York City's future, and that we are not resting on our laurels from the past 75 years, but that we want the next 75 to be incredibly promising as well.
I see NYCHA growing and going green, making a sustainable reality for the future, where we reduce our consumption on energy, produce less carbon emissions, and make sure that the affordability of public housing is a reality for 75 more years to come.
I think the buildings are here to stay. I don't think there's any question about that. The Obama administration is committed to restoring public housing financing. The Bloomberg administration is committed to preserving low-income housing in the city, and public housing is one of the key things they count as their accomplishment, is preserving it.
In citywide programs, we're always looking to take our programs to the next level. I hope to continue most of these programs and bring more funders in to actually grow them, include more seniors, youth. So I actually see growth. So I see 75 years more of public housing and a wonderful opportunity for residents.
I also hope that some of the pride and the sense that it is a beginning but not an ending for people comes back, and that there should never be any sense of shame attached to it.
The 75th anniversary of public housing is so important because just like 75 years ago, when they knew that they had to replace an old structure with a new one, we have to look 75 years into the future to make sure that these structures and more structures are made so that the same type of problem that created the shortage of housing before doesn't happen again.
I know that with your continued support and the support of all of our stakeholders, 75 years from now, another chairman will be standing here before a new generation of residents, employees, elected officials, and other stakeholders celebrating 150 years of public housing in New York City.
Public housing is more than just bricks and boilers. It's children, it's families, it's communities. We're talking about an institution that continues to build self-esteem, hope, and independence for the more than 400,000 people who call it home. I'm James Ford of the WPIX Morning News. Thanks for watching.